Hi, Good Fig. Hi, my name is Damian Carell. I have the great privilege of leading the incredibly talented Figma brand studio team here. Shout out. So happy and excited to be here. I'm also really excited to introduce our next speaker. Brent is an art director at Special Offer. From the process behind a single shade of green that defined a summer to the systems thinking that holds together large-scale creative campaigns. Brent's done it all. He'll share how he approaches design work that spans albums, magazines, live media, and pushes visual culture. Please help me in welcoming him to the stage.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming. I'm happy to have you here. As Damian mentioned, my name is Brent David Freaney. I am an art director and I have a studio practice called Special Offer. And the main thing that we do at Special Offer, one of the main things we do is to kind of help artists design album artworks and identities around their albums so that when we have campaigns to launch, that there is a really tight and succinct system. So think about brand guidelines, think about typography and color. We sort of help to define all of those things and kind of cradle that album in that. At the same time, I'm also the global art director of ID Magazine. So ID Magazine is a magazine founded by a hero of mine, another art director, Terry Jones, in August of 1980. And for people who are unfamiliar with ID, what I like to say is that ID is let me see if I get this right, a visual and anthropological survey of what is going on in culture at the moment in which the magazine is printed. So, thank you. The amount of times that I have messed that up in the last 2 days when I'm in my room thinking about this. But anyway, so that's ID Magazine. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of really great artists and doing a lot of really fun work. I've been a designer for about 24 years now, I would say. I'm not gonna tell you my age yet, so you don't have to do the math. But it has been later in my career that I've really gotten into doing album artworks on sort of the scale that I'm able to do it at now. I started as a website design and developer, figuring out how to copy and paste little HTML snippets together, and that's sort of, I guess, my background. I've been able to work with people like Miley Cyrus, Tame Impala on their album Deadbeat, recently Rosalia on her album Lux. That was a really fun one. Next week, we have Madonna's album, Confessions on a Dance Floor Part 2, coming out, which is, I can't, you guys, I mean, to get a call from Madonna, you're like, what? Are you sure? Okay. But I think that what people probably know my studio and me a little bit more, or for the most, is that we helped Charli XCX to design an album called Brat. Which actually was designed in Figma, by the way. You guys are a good crowd, I'm happy. I was like, if they don't laugh at the jokes, if they're not into it, I am, ugh. But you didn't, keep up your end of this bargain for the next 15, 20 minutes, please. Before we talk about Brat, before we talk about sort of the design process behind Brat, I wanted to talk a little bit about culture and sort of experiencing culture and also fandom and about how I truly believe that fans are the people that built the internet through forums, through different communication styles. I think that fans are the reason why musicians are able to do what they do, and I think that they're one of the most important pieces of the entire ecosystem. This is a photo of me in 1999. I was 14. You now can do the math, actually. That joke didn't work. And I had no friends. Which is a joke that doesn't really land sometimes because I think people are like, oh. But the reality was that I didn't really want any. I was really just into, I just wasn't on the same wavelength. It wasn't working, there weren't a lot of people around me that I related to. There wasn't a lot of people that related to me. And that was okay, it was totally fine. I grew up in a city outside of New Orleans, about an hour away. So New Orleans is kind of, within arm's reach. If we went to the airport, we went to New Orleans. If we went, school shopping, we went to New Orleans and stuff. But ultimately, I was across the lake and, about an hour away. When you're thinking about New Orleans, you might be thinking about Bourbon Street, Mardi Gras, and the sort of rich culture, I guess, that New Orleans sort of has around it, which is such an amazing and sort of perfect melting pot. But the reality is that in Long Beach, Mississippi, the vibe was a little bit more like that. And this is actually gorgeous. I got this in I was looking tumbleweeds and I was like, actually, this is what I want to put up. And then, but the reality was it was actually more like this. Martin Parr photo that I've always been obsessed with. But the thing that kind of, really kept me going as I was growing up, and the thing that I was really, really into was the television. And trying to absorb all that I could from the television at any given point in time, and specifically MTV. MTV was a way for me as a young child, early teen, to be able to interact and engage with and receive information about culture and pop culture and fashion and identity and obviously music. And it was sort of a way that I could get myself out of where I was and just sort of understand what was going on in the sort of larger scheme of things. I was really obsessed with MTV. You could find me watching it at all hours of all time, all night, no sleeping, just MTV, MTV, MTV. Probably to a fault that my parents should have been a little concerned, but good on them for not being. My favorite show on MTV, and the thing that I was the most obsessed with, was a show called The Real World. And The Real World was a show about 7 kids, 18 to 24, that got put together inside of a house. And, it was the first episodic reality show that ever existed. And it was sort of done in a documentarian style. So throughout the season, you were able to sort of see the conversations these people would have, the fights they might have, the different, interactions that they might have. And I found sort of through all the seasons of The Real World, myself in each and every one of the cast. And I could sort of relate to all of these people. And so these people became friends. I mean, parasocial friends. They did not know I existed. But I was obsessed. Here's the intro.
This is the true story
True story.
of 7 strangers
Picked to live in a house.
and have their lives changed.
To find out what happens
when people stop being polite.
and start getting real. The real world. San Francisco.
Round of applause for The Real World. So The Real World, when I was a teenager, had probably had 8 seasons. It went from New York to Los Angeles to San Francisco to London to Miami to Boston to all over the place. And it was always 7 new people, and always they were 7 different types of people that had not really been on had been on a season prior. It was always a different type of person. And so it was a way for me to be able to understand and meet a range of people and kind of understand the perspective of a range of people. So when I was in 9th grade, we found out that it was shooting in New Orleans. And so I quite literally lost my shit. I was like, what do you mean? And every single day, I started having my mom drive me to New Orleans so that I could stand in front of the house and see what was going on. See cast members, try to talk to them, production, crew, just trying to see any sort of activity and energy there. And I would spend hours outside of this place. Side note, I was really into men's jewelry at the time. I was like, you want a hemp necklace? I'm gonna make you a hemp necklace. And so I would sit outside of this house and I would just make hemp necklaces for the cast members. Which is truly the nerdiest thing that could exist. You can see my sister here being like, what are we doing, right? So I would attach my address to these necklaces and throw them up on the stoop, and over the course of a couple weeks, nothing really ever happened. They shut down production. They finished filming the season, and then they went on to edit it and kind of make it the thing or whatever. And I was always a little sad that I had never really gotten to have that sort of breaking through the fourth wall experience that I think that I was really trying to have. So then one day, I'm at home, probably watching television or something. I remember my mother, my grandmother, my sister were all there. And my mom comes in with a letter that she had found, and it was one of the members of the cast had sent me a letter. And a couple of years ago, and I don't really remember this being the case, my mother during COVID got a lot of videos digitized, and there was a video or a film of this entire, or a short clip of this entire interaction of me receiving the necklace. And so I'm gonna play it for you. I scream a lot in it, but let's just cut to it.
Here, get a knife and open it so you don't mess up the envelope.
Hey, Brent, go jump down the hall like you did so I can see. Now, Carla, hand him the letter.
Listen, he's gonna do it when he sees what's in here. Come on. No, but let's open it.
Hand him the letter. Oh, what if she has a picture?
Brent, can you believe it? Mom, it's okay. Read it.
That's when I spilled water on it in the moment.
Read it.
She working in there?
She's wearing it in an interview on the real world. Let me see. Brent, let's finish reading it. Okay. It says, how many reasons? Oh my God.
You can see my sister getting mad here.
What does it say? Okay, thanks so much, Mom, that you did not have to take the time and effort into sending that to me. Can you email me when you get this and tell me where I met you so that I can remember when I tell my friends about this?
She met me.
It's Melissa Howard. Look for princessmelissa.com to launch this summer. Lots of love, Melissa. She thinks he's like her age and she met him out somewhere.
Oh, well, that's all right.
Brent, she's wearing it in an interview.
Let me get my screen.
She's wearing that necklace. She's wearing that necklace.
No, I was gonna think to you that I just want to go see it.
She's wearing that.
It's not launched. It's not up yet. It's summer. No, I just want
Whitney, let him do it first.
he gets everything.
I mean, truthfully, my sister is the star of that entire thing. Like, and it was just so insane that, all of a sudden, a couple of years ago in 2020, my mom got these tapes digitized. I remember this moment so clearly. It was such a pivotal moment in my life. And to be able to then be given, I'm not gonna tear up. To be able to be given it and to be able to show what it was and to be able to see the moment that I could picture so clearly in my mind from, 30 years ago was just truly the most, I was, astounded. Through that letter, I became pen pals with the cast member, and we, would exchange mixed CDs, and she would show me different, artists that I might like, and she'd talk about fashion with me. But one of the most important things, or the more important things that we kind of went through, is that at the end of that letter, a second ago, you might have heard it, but she was launching her website, which was called princessmelissa.com. And so this is pre-social media, this is pre-social networking and everything. It was just her little corner of the world that she had figured out how to copy and paste HTML snippets together to be able to make a blog that people could follow along and sort of see what was going on, in her life post the real world. And I would look at it every single day. I would read about it. I would read it. I would just try to get all I could from it. I could tell that after the show aired that she was, I sort of modeled my sense of humor after her. I felt that we were very akin, and there was such a correlation. And I also felt that she knew that there was a semblance between us and that she was able, with that letter, to sort of reach through the television and grab me and say, hey, we're gonna make sure that you get to where you need to go. So she moved to Los Angeles, spent her time kind of forming community there, building up her life there. And the moment that I could, when I turned 18, I also moved to LA because I'm a crazy person. We weren't talking anymore by this point, by the way. This is like 4 years later. And I wasn't honestly, that's an oversimplification of what happened. But I just, through princessmelissa.com and through then my experience on building websites for myself and learning how to sort of, start blogs on my own and meeting other people that were into bands that I was then into and kind of finding community. A lot of those people all lived in Los Angeles from these fan, message boards. And so I knew that if I got there, that's where a community of people sort of, would be for me to be able to sort of be friends with and sort of see on a daily basis and really kind of like be in it with. And so when I was 18, I moved to LA. Didn't really know anybody. I actually didn't move to LA. I moved to West Covina, which is not LA. You might know. It's LA County though, so I was like, why is rent so cheap? But you got it. And I spent the next 15 years living in LA and really just making friends and working within the community of people that I thought were interested in the things that I was interested in, that they were making things that I wanted to help. And I used design as a way to kind of help other people do their thing. So if I had a friend that was starting a clothing line, I knew that I could use design to kind of figure out how to make a logo and export it into the things that I needed and put it on a shirt. Or if I had a friend that was in a band and they needed a tour poster, I would, kind of put it together in some sort of scrappy way and be like, here, I think this is what it can look like. But I never really learned or never really knew what I was doing. I was just really interested in being around people and being able to help them and sort of usher the things that they wanted to do in. It's like a true collaboration. So basically what I did for the next 15 years was just kind of hang out. Here's me hanging out with a lot of friends. I'm hanging out here. This is a haircut that I had for a second. So that was really fab. At one point, I even started a band with some friends. It was not good. I was not good at it, but I wore this sailor hat every day. I thought that was like the vibe. Anyway, the point that I'm sort of making is that design was an afterthought for me. It was something that I used to be able to help and communicate and collaborate with other people that were already making things with. So I did that for a very long time, sort of lived in LA, just kind of hanging out, doing the thing. And eventually, 15 years later, I'm just gonna cut forward. You can imagine that a lot of stuff happened, and there was a lot of stuff that happened. We're in 2023. And I get a message from a colleague or a friend that I kind of made named Imogene, who was the creative director for Charli XCX. And I knew who Charli was. I knew kind of the vibe of the music, but I wasn't really I wouldn't really call myself I knew the hits. I wasn't really a big fan, but I thought that what she was doing was cool, and I thought that she was interesting, and I was also kind of like, hell yeah, like somebody wants me to make album artwork for them. Like, first of all, why me? Because I'm a website designer, and that's kind of what I do for a job. And they sort of said, we want a typographic album. We want something that feels like design. We want something that is not, like what's going on in the rest of sort of the landscape of 2024. And so I sort of took a lot of the things that they sort of talked about, the things that they had kind of defined as a personality structure for Brat, things that, kind of Brat was and Brat wasn't. And I just brought it into Figma and was like, all right, let me try to figure this out. I'm going to share my screen now to show a couple of things, if we can switch there. That's Princess Anne. Yeah, hell yeah. Okay. So, whenever I start a project, whenever I first get a project, the thing that I do is to go through the library of images that I have been collecting. And I collect a lot of images, whether that's things on the Instagram that I see, or on the internet that I see, or if it's things on the street, I take a lot of photos of signs, I take a lot of photos of just like everything, just trying to kind of hoard digitally all of the things that I like, that I think are cool, that I might just see during the day. And so anytime I go through a project, or every time I start a project, knowing what that project is in my mind and thinking about what the main pieces of that might be or look like, or what the personality of that project is, I'll go through, let me see if I have it here. I will go through my library, and this is this year's library, for example, and I will just, in my mind, say, great, is this it? No. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. No, 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 no. Yes. No, 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 for 2,000 images or however many I've collected that year. And the reason I bring this up specifically is to let you know that I think that, like, as a designer, our real work is not in the actual design itself, but in the collecting of ideas and design, and being able to be inspired and see other things and to take it into your brain. And this is the work. The work is not spending time on the computer doing the thing and trying to get the thing right. The work is in experiencing and trying to take it all in, and really just consuming media and content to like the craziest degree. So I did that, and I came up with some things for Brat that I knew was right. Charli was always really prescriptive. She knew she wanted it to say Brat. She knew she wanted it to be green. And so with such a specific, directive in mind, I just sort of kind of tried to start building things that I thought could help with the world around what the album cover was going to end up being ultimately, knowing that it was going to be simple and typographic and sort of thing, but there was so much more that I needed to build from the ground up to be able to understand how this vinyl packaging was going to be able to work in so many different ways. And so I pulled a lot of, my mouse is off. Also, if you're a designer that doesn't use a mouse, you need to start using a mouse. It is my biggest pet peeve. You cannot use a trackpad. It does not work. Like, the efficiency, you have to use the mouse. So I started going through and I started pulling things that I found in my, that I had in my library, colors, anything that was green, I sort of pulled in. This is an old holiday party we had that I had my dog on. I got this when I went to Korea one year. It was like a customs form. I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. What do I do with it? Took a photo of it. I started thinking about, this is my dog's pet store. I started thinking about other album artworks or other things that are in this world that were type only and sort of text only, and how they could hold weight and kind of be, they could be like, how could they be iconic or kind of be descriptive? I liked these green pants that Martine Rose made. This was a water bottle design that I had made about Whitney Houston a couple years prior. So you can kind of see that I was just kind of pulling in any single thing that I felt could somehow be in the world of Brat. There's a lot of stuff here. This is my favorite thing that somehow made the cut. And I don't know how it made but it's there. It somehow, osmotically, it is part of the Brat artwork. A lot of sort of system typography, a lot of fonts, and a lot of just materiality things, just anything that I could feel that could be like in the Brat universe, whether it made sense for me or not, or whether it was pertaining to my role as the designer of this thing or not. Like, it was just anything I had that I could find. And then we started just kind of going through and deciding, great, what should this look like, and what is the typography, and what is the color, and what is the capitalization, and what's the spacing, and what's the kerning, and what's the size, and what's the composition, and how should it feel, and what makes us feel when we see it the most, what like rings truest, and truthfully, my role as a designer, there's a lot of ideas that people have, which is that you have to really show or edit your design work to only be what you really want it to be chosen at, so that you can show a perspective and say, great, here are your three options. But I've always been the other way. I've always been like, let's just look at every single thing that I've done in this round of design, for example. And a big reason for that is because then I can say, through all of that stuff, and a lot of it that I don't like, I've come to the conclusion that this is what I do like from this round. And so I think that, I always sort of say that design is a relationship of trust, and that when you're working with other people or you're working with other clients, if there is not a blind mutual trust there, it does not work. It is required. And the only way to get that mutual trust is by forming a relationship and being able to show your work, show the references, explain that you understand what is going on and what your perspective is on this, and kind of coming up with something that, brings something to the table that feels really, really right. And so obviously looked at a lot of green stuff. I looked at a lot of sort of like this Radiohead packaging that I was obsessed with. There was this I thought that was a cool sort of styrofoam thing. This was from Charli's video for Von Dutch that I was like, that's a really fab thing. I've always been obsessed with airports, digital stuff. I just started kind of going through and pulling that stuff. And then next round, we have photography now. So now we have an album shoot and we know kind of what the world is starting to look like around it. We know what the vibe is going to be from a tone standpoint, from a visual standpoint, the styling standpoint. And we started kind of also just keeping, honing in on what we still thought was our favorites from the round before. And there's a lot that is bad that we're still doing. And I think that that's also a thing that I think we get caught up on, which is that if it's not good, it needs to go away, and I can't have it around, and let's get it away from the thing. And every round has to be better and better and better and better and better than the last round. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that is I think it's a misconception that design 1 to design 2 to design 3, through all these rounds of design, that you are supposed to be getting better and better and better and closer and closer and closer to the thing. Sometimes you are just exploring more and learning more and trying to define what you don't want it to be so that you can understand what the boundaries are in all of this stuff. So through all this, Imogene, Charli, they were like, we love it, let's keep going. What do we need to do the artwork though? And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we went into color and typography and trying to understand weight and trying to understand, rationale for composition, why something might be, the difference between, the darker ones and the lighter ones, what is the tone we want it to feel, how, special, how the never-ending task of choosing a font. I'll also say that since Brat, and this is something that I tell all the designers who come work at Special Offer, you don't have to find the right font. You can stick with the 5 that you like and know how to control. And I think that there's this idea that if I just find the right font, it's gonna be right. And that's what's gonna make the whole thing, and that is not true. You have to just, you need to find a gel. You need to be able to figure out what you're working with and the ones you like the most and the ones that you feel like you can control the most and have the most, work on. Eventually through all of this, Charli, this is even an abbreviated version of what this was, by the way. And also let me say that this is the first real time I've used auto layout, because I hit auto layout sometimes and I'm like, no. I don't know what to do. And then I'm like, but I will say that I know that everybody at Special Offer loves auto layout. Me, it's not whatever, we don't need to get into it. You can use Figma the way that you want to use Figma, is what I'm saying. Through all of this, we got a choice. Charli chose this. Pretty clear, pretty easy. But then the thought was, how do we get this into print and how do we print this onto vinyl and stuff? And I was just sort of like, well, shit. I made this in Figma. How am I going to print this in the way, and I don't just want to recreate it, what can I do? And so from a small screenshot of this, I exported it at 12,000 pixels wide because I thought, that sounds right. Vinyls are 12 inches. I'll just choose, let's see, down screenshots. I'm like, okay, that's getting closer. And then I exported it. This is where I did the 12,000. Export. It was probably named Screenshot 2024 also, by the way. Desktop, save. Let's see if I did this right. I practiced it a couple times, but we'll see. There we go. So that's it. we can turn the screen share off and I'll go back to my lowly slides, please. So Brat, then obviously we had no idea what was going to happen to it and what it was going to do. I was just really happy to have gotten Charli to a place that she was really happy with and that she felt like really represented her album in the right way. Obviously, after Brat kind of came out and the music kind of took over and kind of really infiltrated culture in a way, and she was able to really show people a really, really, really fun, irreverent side of herself and tone in music, did I realize that through the reuse of Brat and through the reuse of the artwork, had Brat actually become an interface itself. And so a lot of people started reusing it. We had, in New York, we had the MTA. It's the G train, but it's not the G train, it's the M train today. It's still different, whatever. I'm like, I want a subway system that works, please. There's like I remember, and I couldn't really tell what it was. I couldn't really tell, like, is it just my algorithm that's sort of doing this? Is it just my parents that are sending me things being like, hey, look, Ritz Crackers made Brat, Ritz, or whatever. And I was like, okay, got it. NATO did one that said peace on it. I'm like, sis, there is a war. Like, there is an actual war. But thank you for the screenshot. But through all of this, I just sort of realized that it was the fans and it was the reception of this artwork that really kind of was the last part in the design process. And that everything we had done up until that point was actually just hoping that it was the right fit for the thing. And so I sort of, I think that the audience's response to design is really the last step in the process, because how someone reacts to something, how it makes them feel, how they can bring it into their life, how they might not want it in their life, all of those things is the true sort of, part of the design process itself. It is not after, it is not post. I think that the audience is the medium. I think that what we are trying to do is get people to react to something really viscerally that we love. We get someone to, like I was with The Real World, sitting in front of the TV, just trying to be a part of something and trying to kind of understand what was going on in culture around me. Even from my bedroom in Long Beach, Mississippi, I needed to find other people for which to work with and to be able to understand and collaborate with. And so I kind of always say that there is no finished state. Every bit of design will always live forever if you want it to. And even if you think something is done, you've shipped it, it's out, it's gone to print, it's done the thing, even 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, and you haven't thought about the thing, it is still a work in progress. You can still go back to it, and it can change again. There is no ending. And let me say that I learned mostly through this process, or a big part of it through this process, is that I could have been iterating forever. I could have just done the type of font choosing, the color choosing, the scaling. I could have done that into eternity. And the only thing that really kind of got me out of that tunnel vision was somebody like Charli and Imogene, who said, we're done, this is it. My job as a designer is to keep on going and to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and just trying to kind of put everything I possibly can out so that I can get it all out. And I'm so thankful for collaborators to be able to do that, and I think that that's something that we all have to really find. And I think that that is the true testament to community and life and things like that. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Figma, for having me.